Money isn't everything, but it rates reasonably close to oxygen on the gotta have it scale. Everyone knows what money is, but what is financial freedom? Do people have financial freedom when they finally have $1 million in a bank account? Or does your bank account balance even matter?
Is financial freedom permanent? Once you have it, does it last forever?
How do you know when you are financially free? What does that look like exactly?
That's what we're going to talk about today. You are listening to the Wealth Talks podcast. Northwest Mutual recently did a survey of millionaires, and what they found is shocking. 1 out of 3 millionaires don't consider themselves wealthy.
That's interesting. Most people would think a millionaire is fabulously wealthy and never has to worry about money again.
Most people think that being a millionaire would spell financial freedom.
Well, financial freedom means different things to different people. Recently, we talked about the book, Oh, Money, Money, and one of the characters in there said financial freedom would be to go to a restaurant, not have to look at the prices, and order anything she wanted.
And then just a few minutes later, she was a little bit disappointed. She said, I couldn't ever really do that. Come to think of it, I don't think anybody ever could.
Just the other day, Tom, last night, I think it was, at the dinner table, you were talking about Warren Buffett, and you recently read that on his way to work every morning, he goes to McDonald's and he orders anything he wants, which happens to be an Egg McMuffin, possibly a sausage McMuffin, and a Coke. And for him, that's part of his financial freedom. For me, that would not be financial freedom. In fact, I think a lot of people would be wondering, with all the money he has, why does he even go to work? Because they equate financial freedom with never having to work again.
That's a different definition of financial freedom. So some people, they equate it with never having to work again. Some people don't want to have to look at the price tags. Some people, they would think of financial freedom as not being in debt, not having to make payments.
And then there's people that would read that story about Warren Buffett and say, oh, I'm going to go to McDonald's for breakfast every day so I can be a multimillionaire.
Well, that's not logical, because there's plenty of people that do go to McDonald's probably nearly every day, and they're certainly not millionaires.
The other thing about Warren Buffett, though, is he still lives in the same house he bought in 1958.
Well, that's interesting. I don't live in the same house. Oh, wait a minute. I wasn't around in 1958. We've moved several times, so that's not something you can just equate with millionaires. But I think what you're saying is contentment. He is content with certain things that some people would say. For some people, it's, I've got to have a bigger house. I've got to have a different car. Different people associate different things with financial freedom. But I think one of the things that comes up with financial freedom is being able to get out of survival mode, not having to be concerned about where you're going to get money to put food on the table. How are you going to pay to put gas in your car? Are you going to be able to pay your credit card minimum payment? Those things really strap people financially. And many people think financial freedom is to get out of that mode. And that is one aspect of financial freedom. We want to move from just survival to stability, from stability to security, and then on to significance in our lives.
And those 4 stages of financial freedom, they vacillate through life too. You can be at a place of significance and still dealing with stability at the same time. It's not like, oh, I've reached this level and now it's there forever. Look at the Fortune 500 list. The top 10 Fortune 500 people, they fluctuate from year to year to year. It's a vacillating level of how much wealth you have. And if we are hoping and putting our trust in money to give us the security or the stability or the significance, then we've missed the point. As the proverb says, if you put your hope on your riches, they're going to disappear. They're going to make wings like an eagle and fly off to the sky. We can't have our financial freedom based on how much money we have or how little we have. St. Paul said, he learned to be content with whatever he had. He wrote that while he was in prison with nothing. And yet, just being content doesn't mean we don't strive to do better and generate more wealth.
Contentment is an interesting concept because people with a lot of money can have it. People with hardly any money can have it. And as we're thinking about financial freedom, we need to be careful that we don't set the definition for financial freedom as more all the time. Because when we have a low income, yeah, we could desire a higher income and work toward that. If we have debt, yes, we could try to get that paid off and actually have savings, money that's saved up as a cash cushion in the bank. If once we have savings, sure, we will probably have a goal to have some investments of some type. But if we're always looking for financial freedom in the next step, more mentality, then we're never going to be content with where we are today.
I'm thinking of two people right now. One was a story I just read the other day. A multimillionaire in her 80s was seen washing out a paper towel after she used it to hang it up to dry. And she was asked, "Why are you doing that?" And she says, "Because I don't know if I'll have enough money to survive me." I mean, she was worried that she was going to run out of money before she died. So she was being really frugal. And then the other hand was years ago, one of my patients came in. He had 3 or 4 young children. I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 at the time. But he told me that he was just going to go on welfare now because he was just going to trust in the Lord for his future. And he was saying, the Lord's going to teach me contentment. Well, that's not contentment. That is expecting everybody else to take care of you.
Was he an able-bodied guy?
This is a very able person.
Okay. There's something out of balance there.
It is good to say, I'm going to trust in the Lord, but also to trust in the Lord knowing that he can bless the work that you do and be willing to get up and work.
There is a difference between being in survival mode and getting to a place of stability. For example, if somebody's air conditioner goes out, that's going to be a crisis for a lot of people. Whereas somebody that's financially stable is probably going to have the savings to be able to pay for that and not feel it directly in their pocketbook in the same pay period.
And yet, if we go back to the 1950s, someone's air conditioning going out, they didn't even know what air conditioning was.
True.
So where is our crisis mode? It all comes back to the way we think about the conveniences we have. I know Nelson Nash used to say, a luxury once experienced becomes a necessity. Do we experience luxuries and then say, oh, that was a great meal out at the great steakhouse last night. Let's do it every night now. Where do we stop? We have to discipline ourselves if we're ever going to be wealthier to make sure that we are not making every luxury we experience become something that we have to experience every day.
In our home, we have a daylight basement, and we recently had a downpour here in central Indiana. We had flooding conditions all over, and we have 2 sump pumps in our basement. We didn't have any water in our basement, so we were very grateful for that. But we discovered one of the sump pumps wasn't working. And that we were able to, just pay for that repair. At one time in our lives, that might have been very difficult to make that repair of that sump pump. But that was a necessary item because we could have had a crisis had we had our main sump pump go out. So there's an example right there of being able to protect our property and not have a crisis. And it wasn't an inconvenience to us to make that purchase.
And that's because we've learned that we have to have a cash cushion. And when we first started out in married life, we had a crisis that we couldn't depend on our cash cushion. We had the subfloor in our bathroom leak, and the subflooring had formaldehyde in it, and it was making you very, very sick. And when we discovered that, we had to extend credit on a credit card to get that fixed. And that was fine at that time, but that was a stress for us. That was more in survival mode at that time. Whereas when the sump pump was not working, that wasn't a crisis for us because we've developed a cash cushion. And the way you develop a cash cushion is you save a little bit of everything you make.
And sometimes you save a lot. Millionaires, they tend to save more than other people. In fact, we encourage people to save at least 10% of everything that they make, but that may not be enough for retirement. There's a lot of advisors that are encouraging people to save at least 15% of their income now. And millionaires, they tend to save even more than that. Over 20%, I believe that number is.
So again, coming back to financial freedom, it's not so much what's in your bank account or how much money you have hoarded up. It's how you think about money and how you live your life so that you are content with whatever's there, but always striving to do better and to create more wealth in your life.
Millionaires are surprisingly frugal. I think of people that were flying airplanes around the airport. The people that own their own airplane and understand how that works, they're often very easy on the brakes. Whereas the people that don't own the airplanes, the renters that are coming in, they're often hard on the brakes because they don't understand the cost and the time it takes to repair those. That's an example where a lot of millionaires are frugal. They're not going to be hard on the brakes when they own the airplane and understand what's happening with it. A lot of millionaires, they don't feel like they have to fly first class when they fly commercially. It's just part of what they have, part of the habits that they have cultivated to become millionaires. That's part of what helped them get there.
Financial freedom isn't saying that I can buy any yacht I want to or any house that I want to. It's not even saying that I don't have to check into work today because Warren Buffett goes to work every day. So again, financial freedom, we can't stress this enough, is how you feel about it. Where is your faith? Is it in your money or is it in the one who provides the money for you?
It's a level of contentment. And so it's not necessarily amount that's in a bank account. Different amounts would help different people feel more comfortable, but financial freedom is really a mindset.
We've talked about many scenarios of financial freedom and what it looks like to different people. When we get back from the break, we're going to talk about how you decide what financial freedom looks like to you and actionable and practical steps about how you can get there.
If infinite banking is a simple process, why does it seem so complicated? Could it be that infinite banking started out as something simple, but over time has morphed into a convoluted process of buying a policy to borrow from the policy so you can pay interest on your own money and still come out ahead? Could it be that some people selling infinite banking policies have made it seem exclusive just for the wealthy or financially savvy? Could it be that insurance terms such as modified endowment contract, 7-pay test, direct recognition, overfunding, and paid-up additions are hard to understand? We think the answer to all of these questions is yes. Infinite banking, as most people know it today, is too complicated and confusing, but it didn't used to be. That's why we've put together a binder called Infinite Banking Made Simple. It's just the essentials, no mind-bending magic or number gymnastics. Included in the binder are answers to the top commonly asked questions, like what is infinite banking, how does it work, and how much does it cost to start. We've made the binder available to you as a free digital download. Click the button to get your copy of the Infinite Banking Made Simple binder. You can also get a copy of this binder at mcpheeinsurance.com.
Before we talk about how to obtain financial freedom, we want you to understand that financial freedom does not dawn like the sun on some specific future date. Instead, it is established by wise decision-making and responsible behavior over time.
In other words, if you don't become someone who experiences financial freedom, you will never be financially free. Proverbs 11 talks about the person who strives after riches and falls, while the righteous man flourishes like an evergreen.
So what is financial freedom? How do people decide what financial freedom is going to be for them?
Well, I think of Nelson Nash. He used to say you need to get in the corner by yourself and do a lot of praying and figure out what is it in life that you really need and what is it are the things that you're spending money on that are just frivolous, that are not necessary. Because if you want to get ahead, you have to have savings. We've talked about Warren Buffett, but his partner, Charles Munger, said, you have to save. And he said, save $100,000 and the rest is easy. Maybe you'll never save $100,000 in your life, but you have to save something. Otherwise, you'll never have the seeds to grow wealth, because savings are the seeds that create wealth.
What about people that do save $100,000? Maybe they save more than $100,000. Are they going to be automatically financially free?
Depends on what they do with it. If they put their hope in it, they're going to fall, because the Proverbs tells us that. If they manage that money wisely, then it will produce more, just like the story of the talents in Matthew 25.
Sometimes when we're helping people think about what financial freedom is to them, sometimes it's easier for them to think of what is not financial freedom in their current situation. And then that gives them a point of focus, and we can help them overcome that obstacle in their life. So sometimes if that helps you think of what financial freedom is, because see, financial freedom, it's an ideal. And so if we are always trying to achieve an ideal, then it's always going to be out there ahead of us. But if we focus on what's not working now and see how we can solve that, we're going to be closer to the ideal than if we just started out shooting for some ideal that's up there in the sky.
So you start defining points where you need to improve and work on changing those things so that you're more on a trajectory to be able to go where you want to go.
Exactly. That's the idea. And see, people can be good problem solvers. Once we identify a problem, an obstacle, we can work to overcome it, especially when we're motivated to do it. Oftentimes, that's going to be easier than trying to achieve an ideal. You have to break it down into steps. And that's a takeaway from many goal-setting processes. You have to break it down into easy steps that you can do today. If you try to get from point A to point B of 1,000 miles, you're going to have several turns that you have to make along that journey.
Some people will define financial freedom as being out of debt. We've worked with people that have had very small debts, so less than $1,000, and are worried sick over it. They have no freedom. They really feel the fact that the borrower is slave to the lender, like the scripture tells us. Other people, they have hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, but they're very comfortable with it because those hundreds of thousands of dollars, they're generating more money than what they have to pay their creditor. So being out of debt isn't financial freedom. It is, again, how you're thinking about it and how you're managing the resources that God has provided you.
So we have some statistics here on millionaires and some of their financial circumstances and life circumstances that we want to review to see, what are they doing and how can we be similar?
Something that's really fascinating about millionaires is that most of them were not born with a silver spoon in their mouth. That means they didn't inherit this money from their parents or their grandparents. They didn't win the lottery. They actually worked long hours, some of them more than 50 hours a week, to become millionaires.
Yeah, 78% of self-made millionaires, they've come from middle or lower class income families. So in order to get to where they have, they've worked for it.
That should be encouraging to everyone today because most of us are in that working class area. And if we can be diligent and apply the discipline and the efforts that these millionaires, self-made millionaires have done, there's hope for us too, because we live in America.
One of the things we're often saying is you've got to save at least 10% of what you make. But millionaires, they have been in the practice of saving 23% of what they make.
Millionaires are committed people too. 88% of them read for 30 minutes a day to improve their knowledge. And they're committed people in their marriages too. 65% of them are still married to their first spouse. 66% of millionaires own their own business. And 81% of millionaires, they spend less than $10,000 when they take a vacation.
Here's another really interesting statistic about self-made millionaires. Most of them never got to $1 million until after 50 years of age. And so many people today are looking for the fast buck and say, I'm going to go chase after this or after this because people are really raking in the money there. But that's not how money is accumulated and produces financial freedom. If we set our focus and hope on money, it's going to go away. We shouldn't strive to get wealthy. We should strive to be disciplined and frugal and manage what God has given us in a way that would please Him. And that way He can give us more to manage.
That's a lottery mindset when you're always looking for the grass that's greener on the other side of the fence. If you're always trying to go where the money, where you see the money, that's what lottery players are doing. They see people are winning the lottery, and so they're going to go play the lottery. $97 billion spent on lottery tickets in 2022.
Some people feel justified that they can go spend those lottery tickets because they are saving for their retirement in their 401k. But less than 3% of millionaires are millionaires because of their 401k. So if you want to be saving for your future, for financial freedom in your future as well, then you've got to maybe save heartily like the millionaires did, the 23%, not relying on 401k and then the occasional lottery ticket, but because even those together don't seem to be a winning combination.
Well, that goes along with the fact that 2/3 of millionaires own their own business. And when you own your own business, the joke is that you only have to work half days, either the first 12 or the second 12. It doesn't matter. Okay, so they're hardworking people, and to be a self-made millionaire, it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of concentration. It takes a lot of discipline. And primarily, it takes a desire to be something other than you are right now. As we say often, we've never met anybody that wants less money in their life. As you started this podcast out, Michelle, money ranks right up there with oxygen. It's something that is important to have. How much money we have, though, depends on how we manage what is given to us.
So how does someone achieve their idea of financial freedom?
You have to set goals to get from where you are now to where you want to be. Zig Ziglar had a great quote. He said, if you aim at nothing, you're going to hit it every time. That's where a lot of people find themselves. They don't have financial freedom because they haven't set the goals to make the steps to get closer to their ideals. So when you go to set goals about financial freedom, it's important that you set them in the right way, because some people, if they're making $100,000 now, they might say, hey, I want to make $1 million 5 years from now. But if they don't have a plan to get from where they are now, making $100,000 to $1 million 5 years from now, that's just a dream. If they don't have actionable steps that they can do to make that journey, it's just a dream. And those types of goals, they could be more discouraging than they can be actually encouraging, because you think, hey, I set that goal, I put it out there, it didn't come back to me in the universe. So what went wrong? And you get discouraged and you don't make that progress anymore. That's because the goal was never set in the right way to begin with. So when you're setting financial goals, it's important that they be attainable. You have a clear path from where you are now to where you're going. And it doesn't mean you have to see all the steps along the way, but it needs to be a clear goal, and it has to be in line with what else you're trying to accomplish in life. So Ziglar would encourage people to ask 5 questions. He said, make sure that it's your goal. Make sure it's morally right and fair to everybody that's involved. Make sure it's consistent with your other goals. Make sure you're able to emotionally commit to seeing that goal through, and make sure that you can see yourself reaching that goal. If you don't see those 5 things, then you're not setting that as a true goal. It's still a dream that's out there.
So, for example, somebody shouldn't have goals of becoming a concert pianist and also being a prize fighter. Those 2 things don't go together. You injure your finger and you won't be able to play the piano.
Yes.
So we have to, our goals may not be as fanciful as a prize fighter or a concert pianist, but whatever our goals are, they have to be in agreement with each other. So if you want to increase your business, you have to be willing to do certain things to commit to increasing the business. But if you also want to have good family relations, then you have to have a balance there with building your business and having quality time with family. And it can be done. Mm-hmm. You just have to figure out the balance for that.
I remember a story I heard when I was little of a fellow who had a terminal illness, And the doctor said, go home, get your life in order because you're going to die in about a week. So he went home and he got things in order and he went back to the doctor, and the doctor says, I've got good news for you. We've discovered a medication that if you take this pill every day, you'll probably live your normal life expectancy, unless you're killed by an accident or something. But you will only be able to live one day at a time. And a lot of times people get carried away with their goals and they say, well, I'm going to be a multimillionaire in 3 years.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to be, financially independent a year from now. Well, we've got to come back to what are we doing today to make that goal a reality. Now, I'm not saying the goal is wrong to set those long-term goals. We have to have something that we're shooting for. But we also have to bring it back. What am I doing today? Am I still buying the things that are going to keep me in the financial class I'm in right now?
Or am I still spending time on things that are not being productive and working toward that goal?
Exactly. What are we doing today to reach that long-term goal? Every day there's going to be something that we can do to get there. And if we fail today, it's just going to push that goal objective out further, or maybe make it never attainable.
We have had the pleasure of helping so many people over the last 18 years on their journey to financial freedom. It's amazing how quickly the time goes by, and it's also amazing how quickly circumstances can change for people who are following a plan.
It is exciting and rewarding to see people take responsibility and an ownership interest in their financial situation and develop it into what they want it to be.
Financial freedom is not a destination. It's a way of life. And how much financial freedom you experience will depend greatly on how hard you pursue it. Next week, we're going to talk about the biggest problems we see with people and their finances right here on Wealth Talks.